Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine SelfCare Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode. Hello, it is Elena Lipson, your Divine Self-Care Mentor, and this is episode 16. Oh my gosh, so excited to be here again. If I could just record podcasts all day long, I think I would. And I think I'm going to. I really, really adore you for being here. I adore this sacred space that we are co-creating. And I'm really, really enjoying this sort of sacred rhythm I'm creating for my work around my podcast. I actually had to create space for it on my calendar so that I knew I would show up every week to you. Otherwise, things just don't get done. And when I work with clients, when I work with my inner circle clients who are building their businesses, the main thing is that we need to create sacred systems that bring about positive change. And to me, that's what self-care truly is. I want to help you to really tap into the easier side of work and life, to the more fun, more beautiful side of work and life. And to me, sacred self-care systems do that. And so today I want to explore a question. And this question was brought up by my own ego. Thank you, ego. On Sunday morning of last week. And the reason that it happened was a couple of reasons. So first of all, I'll give you a little background. So as you might or might not know, I am a mama to an almost tween kiddo. And I've been married for 15 years. We've been together for 18 years. So we value our date nights tremendously because we don't have any family around, so a lot of the time that we spend are as a threesome. And when we get a chance to do a date night, we jump all over it. So a dear friend of ours invited our son over for a sleepover and a full day of play, which created a couple of different things in my life. One was a free evening for my husband and I to go out on a date night. And we do what we usually do, which is we go out to sushi, and then we skipped a walk last night because it was a little bit later, but then we came home and had some time together, and it was really beautiful. And then the morning after, he had to wake up and go to work, so I then have an entire day to myself for self-care, for catching up on some work, for planning my week. Really beautiful. And my intention, because I have a pretty early bedtime that I committed to a while back so that I can balance my hormones, I can feel like the sane version of me, like the proud version of me. So I usually get into bed about 9:30, same time as I do lights out for my son, and I read a book, about a chapter of a book that I'm currently interested in, and then 10 o'clock, lights out, and I am asleep, usually within a few minutes. And I wake up around 6:15-ish, maybe 6:20, and then I go into my magic morning practice, which is one of the foundational frameworks that I teach in my Divine Self-Care Circle, which allows you to show up as the best version of you in your life, your business, and the bedroom. And I teach this in detail. I'll talk about this more on other episodes as well. But what happened was around 4:15, 4:20 in the morning, I just woke up from a dream, and I know you can relate to this. My mind just started spinning into projects that I have to get done, money issues, limiting beliefs, and just all kinds of stuff that my mind would not settle. I tried breathing techniques. I tried to change positions. I tried to do all my little tools and tricks. Eventually I did fall asleep, but what it meant was that when when I usually would wake up around 6:15, I was not ready to get out of bed because I was exhausted from having, been awake for so long in the middle of the night. So I gave myself permission to sleep in until I felt like I, really got the nourishing sleep that I needed, even though I was still a little tired. And then when it came time to do my sitting meditation and my candle meditation and just a few cool rituals that I'm doing, I'm in the process of a 40-day specific ritual that I'm doing. I'm on day 18. Well, that morning I was on day 18. And my ego started right away. My ego was like, oh, you are tired. You don't need to do the meditation. It's not dark the way it normally is. It's much lighter. It's not going to be the same. So what if you skip a day? It's not going to be a big deal. And here's the thing about skipping a day. I can totally skip a day because I am in charge of myself and of my life. But I always ask myself this question: who do I want to be? Who do I want to be for myself, for the women that I attract into the work that I do, for my son, for my husband, for my family, beyond my own house, for my friends? And, excuse me, I know what happens when I don't have rhythms and sacred systems into my life. I feel very ungrounded. I feel like things are much more of a hustle. I feel like I'm pushing a massive rock uphill. When I do have the systems in my life, it doesn't mean that everything unfolds all beautifully every single time, but it means that I'm actually more present and rooted for it. So luckily, in that moment, my soul stepped in and said, you totally got this. Even though it's a little later, you're going to be proud of yourself when you're done. Stay committed. And so I did. I committed. It was that easy. Like, I didn't have to really think about it that much, but I heard my ego. My ego was like totally screaming at me, like, you don't have to do this. Just go get some coffee. That's what you really want. But because I had this system in my life that I've been doing for a while, I committed to it, a discipline of really committing to knowing who I want to be. And in order for me to be who I want to be, there are practices that I commit to so that I can really tap into the most sacred, proactive, present, intuitive, alive, lit up version of me. So this is what I would put under the category of spiritual self-care. So the title of this episode is, Does Daily Spiritual Self-Care Practice Even Matter? And I want to argue for the case that it does matter. It really does matter. And I want to give you 7 reasons why I believe it matters tremendously. It's, in an overall sense, it's about planting those seeds in your life that you want to bloom. And the spiritual self-care practice is like watering those seeds. It's nourishing the soil. It's creating the most positive environment for those seeds to flourish in their own divine right timing. So this is really speaking to one of my feminine metrics of success called grace. And grace is where you really allow for things to unfold in a beautiful way, but you also take responsibility for showing up. You can't just sit back and allow grace to do all the work because it just doesn't work that way. The universe responds to your action. When you take action, the universe starts to bring you opportunities, ideas, creativity. And in my world, that action starts and ends with my spiritual self-care practice. It's about really showing up and becoming the woman that I want to be. So what is spiritual self-care? Let's really break it down. So spiritual is any practice that connects you to either your soul, your highest self, to Mother Nature, to Gaia, Goddess, to God, if that's in your terminology, something that is bigger than yourself, that you feel it's who you pray to, right? It's who you give gratitude to. So even if it's looking up at the sun and saying, thank you for the warmth and the healing and the growth, and it's who you pray to. So regardless of who that is, regardless if it's just beautiful nature and rhythms around you, that is special enough. So that's the spiritual element. And the self-care element, as I said, it's those sacred systems in your life that bring about positive change. It can deal with food, it can deal with physical activity, it can deal with your relationships, with the work that you do in the world, your dharma. And so I teach a whole year-long course on self-care. So obviously I can talk about this for a long, long time. But today I really want to break down and really not argue, I guess, but really show you or build the case that spiritual self-care does matter. And I want to share with you 7 reasons why it matters as a practice, right? So reason number 1 is, as you noticed, in that moment, I had a choice to listen to my ego or listen to my soul. And to be quite honest, it wasn't really that much of a choice, even though in that moment it felt like it, but it really removes the choice. When you have spiritual self-care as a practice, it removes the choice. You make the commitment and you show up. So you don't have to think about it. Am I going to do this today or not? You just know that every morning you committed to some sort of practice. And again, you get to decide. It's not like someone makes me do it. It's that I know the option. I know what happens in my life, in my body, in my feeling and thinking and how I show up in the world. I know what happens when I don't have a spiritual self-care practice, and I choose not to go there, right? I don't want to be grumpy. I don't want to be irritable. I don't want to be not well in my body. I want to be thriving, and I want to do work that is inspired. I want to feel enthusiastic. I want to feel turned on. And in order for me to feel those feelings, I show up to my spiritual self-care practice. Now, there's other things I do, like dance is definitely something that gives me those feelings as well. Playing with my son and my husband, laughing, that gives me the feelings as well. But my inner foundation, my spiritual practice is where I start. It's my starting point. If I do that, I'm more likely to do the other things, like drive to the gym to go to a dance class, like be present for my son without feeling like I need to be somewhere else. So that's number 1. It removes the choice. When you have spiritual self-care as a daily practice, it removes the choice. You just do it, right? Now, number 2 is I want to be a person who commits to something. I want to be someone who commits to my own evolution, to my own way of being a mother. So in my practice, I validate for myself that I am a person who commits to something that I can do on a daily basis, which means that when a bigger opportunity comes, I trust that I have the commitment muscle to stay committed to something for the long term. Now, if it no longer works for me, I have no problem pivoting and changing directions. But I know that when I commit to something, even though I expect that there's going to be bumps in the road and challenges and 4 a.m. wake ups where I'm like totally flipping out in my own mind, right? I know that I'm committed to this process. Now, the third reason why spiritual self-care practice matters is that it stimulates my intuition so that I can navigate in my life by my internal intuition navigation system, right? So if we don't have an inner knowing of what we want, of how we want to get there and what we're navigating by, it's very easy to get swept up in other people's ideas for your life. And I know now that I'm in my 40s, I know that there's nothing worse for me. And I know this because I work with women. I've been working with women, coaching them, leading workshops, teaching retreats for now close to 17 years, 16, 17 years, something like that. And I know that one of the worst feelings that you can have as you go into your 30s and 40s is regret. Right? Regret, which also goes along with resentment. And I think those feelings happen when you are doing things out of a sense of obligation to other people, out of a sense of feeling like you have to do something or you're doing it because it's expected of you, instead of being able to tap into something really important in your own knowing, in your body, in your soul, that helps you navigate even those situations where you have to say, yeah, no, thank you, that's not going to work for me, and really building up the courage, the confidence, and the voice to do that. But I believe this really deeply, and I've been really studying intuition since I was a teenager. I remember doing my very first guided meditation when I was about 15 or 16 years old. I remember even being younger than that and being very aware of a little voice in my mind. And I remember thinking, like, where is this coming from? But, it kind of felt like it was part of me, but not really. I wasn't quite sure. I just sort of went with it. And I noticed that the more I listened to that little voice in my head, the louder it got. And the less I listened to it, the quieter it got. And so I realized that I did have some sense of control, and I started noticing when it got louder and why it got louder. And the more I was able to stay true to myself, to speak my truth in those moments, even when it was difficult, that the voice would get louder. And so now, as an adult, as a mother, as a coach, as a leader, I believe very strongly in having you think about and develop a practice that helps you really commit to tuning in to your intuition on a daily basis. It could be as simple as choosing the right food for your body, or choosing where you want to go to lunch, but also in the big ways of making choices for your family or in your business or financial choices. So you cannot navigate with your intuition if you don't have a way to meet with it on a regular basis. And what I have found for myself and others is that when you do commit regularly, when you meet it at a same place, same time every day, all of a sudden you have this way of really connecting to your inner consciousness, to your intuition, to your inner knowing, because you can feel it. You can ask questions, you can listen, and there's so many ways when I teach intuition, there's so many methodologies to help you connect, from writing to dancing to even taking it to the shower, like letting go, play practice. There's all kinds of things you can do. And I'm happy to explore those in further episodes, which I'm pretty sure I will, because intuition is definitely my jam. But one of the amazing ways that I've been able to connect to it on a specifically ongoing basis is through my spiritual self-care practice. So that's reason number 3 why spiritual self-care practice does matter. Number 4 is you get to become a clear channel for higher consciousness and creativity. Now, if you want to know exactly what I mean by clear channel and even experience a guided meditation that I created, you can head over to episode number 12, where I teach you to become a clear channel for creativity and consciousness. So the reason this is really important is that, so many of us try to feel like we have to figure it all out ourselves. Like we have to have all the answers. We need to know the right thing to do at the right time. And I'll tell you what, that is a whole lot of pressure. I know now that I don't have to figure it all out. Yes, of course, I have to make decisions, but I don't have to figure it all out. If I come to my practice and I close my eyes and I ask a question, I get the guidance that I need. Now, sometimes that guidance comes through a conversation later in the day. Maybe someone recommends a book to me. Maybe someone recommends a website or a practitioner. In fact, it happened just yesterday. I was having a conversation. I was in town with my son. We were doing some fun activities in town, and I ran into a woman who runs a local yoga shop where I did one of my very first self-care workshops. And we were just talking about our new adventure in homeschooling with my son. And I was saying how I'm also taking this homeschooling opportunity to teach him Russian, which is my native language. And he's so enjoying it. And I said, the only thing I wish we had was someone else to talk to, like other kids who are Russian or other families, because I really don't know any other Russian people in the area, and it'd be really fun. So now fast forward just a few hours later, my husband and I walk into the sushi restaurant, and there is my son's teacher from last year who happens to be Russian. And she's sitting with 2 other women who they're out eating sushi. And she invites me over. I sit down, and she introduces me to the 2 women that she's having dinner with. And guess what? One of them says, yeah, I'm a Russian teacher, and I am starting a middle school Russian club for some of the families in the school, in the public school. I'm like, what? That is crazy. I was literally just saying, I wish I had other kids or families that my son can connect with, that we can speak Russian to. And so guess what? There it was. So I was intuitively following these little nudges to go to this particular sushi restaurant to have a conversation with this woman. And now, boom, she's sitting right next to me. So we're starting that in November. And it was just one of those moments where you have to just stop and just give gratitude, because if I had changed my thinking at any point, if I had talked myself out of having the conversation during the day, or even acknowledging that this is what I was looking for, and then sitting down and really recognizing this opportunity, I would have missed it. And I think a lot of us do miss opportunities if we're not fully present. So this is another benefit, right? When I'm present for myself in the spiritual self-care practice, I can also be present for those conversations that are trying to guide you. Like the angels around us, the universe, they're trying to guide us, and they do this through other people, usually. Opportunities, conversations, things that catch your attention, things that keep repeating in your mind, or maybe you've seen the same book several times and people keep mentioning it. Don't miss those opportunities, because those are the things that are going to lead you to that next step that you've been craving, wanting, or hoping for. So that's number 4. Number 5 is balance. I become so much less reactive as a mother and a wife, as a coach. I can be present, I can be non-attached, but I'm much more balanced and less reactive. And I'll even add that word, non-attached, when I commit to my spiritual self-care practice. And it really matters, because the way you show up to those relationships in the moment are going to steer the ship for your lifetime. I want to be the kind of mother that is present for my son, that if he tells me something, I don't have to go like a spinning top off in 10 directions. I don't want to react with anger when really all he needs is understanding. I don't want to react with teaching a lesson when he really just needs me to listen. So, and the same thing with my friends, the same thing with my husband, especially with my coaching clients. Oh my goodness. Sometimes they don't need me to tell them exactly what to do. In fact, usually they don't. They need me to hear them and actually hear them beyond their words. And I can't be that fully present coach with my clients unless I learn the skills of being fully present in the moment with all of my senses. So that's another huge reason that spiritual self-care practice does matter, especially if you're someone who works with other people, either as a parent, a spouse, a partner. If you work in a corporation. I remember so many times when I was in the corporate world as a senior trainer, so many times I would navigate by my intuition. I would add, a little color or song or dance or whatever to what I was doing, and it really made a huge difference. I could have just followed the corporate line, or I could have decided, you know what? I'm here. They hired me for a reason. I love what I'm doing. I'm going to add my own style and spin to it. And it always got rave reviews. So that's why it matters. Number 6 is self-integrity or self-trust. This comes back to kind of the number 2 reason, which is being a person who commits. But self-trust is really about keeping promises to yourself. And I talk about this quite a bit. Sacred promises to yourself are one of the main reasons that people actually lose trust in themselves. Imagine 5 years of you telling yourself that you're going to the gym on Monday morning, but you never do. Or you're going to get your diet in order, but you never do. Or you're going to start meditating someday, but you never really do. What ends up happening is you start building up this bank account of broken promises. When you have a full bank account of broken promises, it's very unlikely that you're going to make the next change that requires you to show up as a person who trusts yourself to do what you say you're going to do. So what I have found is that if we start, like with my clients, we start with the really little daily rituals and practices that feel good to your body, and we start with one, just one. We don't need to do 3 or 5 or 10, just one. And it could be as simple as going to bed 20 minutes earlier. That's it. Just that one little change can be enough to help you feel better in the morning, have more motivation, to have the potential to do something good for yourself, like have a healthy breakfast instead of a donut, because it's easier and faster. So you can see how this can be a little bit of a snowball effect. One really good decision made on a daily basis can really start making you overall a more committed, disciplined person to what's most important to you. Because I'll tell you what, having my dad pass away when he was 53 out of the blue really shook things up for me. In fact, I had 3 of my best friends in teenagehood lose their parents quite suddenly. And I remember I fully got it at that point, but now I can look back and say, wow, that was a life-changing process for me to see my very best friends lose their parents, and then me a few years later lose my dad. Now, any of those situations could have turned any one of us into depressed, sort of, downtrodden people. But the thing is, I remember seeing the opposite. Like, wow, this life is not guaranteed. I want to do the things that matter to me in a way that they matter to me, doing them because I want to do them and not doing them out of obligation and wasting 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, living life based on someone else's idea of what's right for me. Because you know what? truly is never guaranteed. I know it's a little bit of a morbid perspective, but it really fuels me to do what I want to do now, not someday. Now, of course, I do delay some gratification. Like I don't do everything right now. There's things that we choose to do in our life and our family now because we have a young son and we're choosing to make certain decisions that meet our family's needs now. But we're dreaming about what our next phase is going to look like. Will it ever come? I sure hope so. I hope the world doesn't end. But in the meantime, on a daily basis, I commit to keeping promises to myself so that when the opportunities come, when the big opportunities like keynoting on some stage or co-leading a retreat in Costa Rica or in France, I can promise myself that I will do what I need to do to show up as the best version of me. So the daily practice starts to become a foundational commitment to myself that gives me self-trust, and I can make promises to others and myself, and I can keep them, right? So that's number 6. Number 7 of why spiritual self-care practice matters is because it really spills over into other relationships. It spills over into other relationships. And I think I've already given you a lot of how this works. But when I show up to my morning practice, I walk away with a smile on my face. And then I show up to my son with a smile on my face, and my husband and my clients. So I get to sort of balance and connect with the way I want to feel that day. I set my intention. I calibrate myself for the day. So my spiritual self-care morning practice allows me to calibrate myself, and which spills over into every single relationship, from waving at the garbage man driving by to how I say thank you and how are you to the person at the cash register, to every single interaction throughout the entire day. Okay. And then the final number 8, I think I said 8. I hope I said 8, but it is 8. 8 reasons that spiritual self-care practice matters is that, scientifically, science agrees that meditation and a spiritual practice connecting to something bigger than you actually reduces your stress, slows your aging, and it fortifies your heart and immune health. Right? So those are really, really good reasons. And I would venture to guess that you even already know some of these reasons, but for some reason you haven't committed. So I really hope that what I've given you today is this understanding that daily spiritual self-care practice does matter. And I'm hoping that one of those reasons connected with your heart, your mind, your soul, your gut, and really you're sitting there going, okay, so I want to do this. How do I start? And that's a great question. So I want to just invite you to do one simple thing. And it really is about finding how spiritual self-care can fit into your life, not the way it fits into my life. It might not work for you the same way it does for me. I have clients with like 3, 4, 5 kids, and they don't have the same morning as I do. So their spiritual practice comes in during the day or in the evening. So first and foremost, I want you to just grab your journal, grab a pen, and say, what would my ideal spiritual self-care practice look like? And just allow yourself to feel into it. It could be as simple as waking up in the morning, going outside, weather appropriate or bundling up, and just sitting there for a few minutes. Like some people just sit in nature as a spiritual self-care practice. Now, the way I do it is I pretty much follow my magic morning practice that I teach in 3 simple steps. And I'll give it to you really simply right now, and I will have a future episode on the magic morning practice. But the simplicity of it is you do something for your mind, something for your body, and something for your soul. So the way I do it is I wake up, I do my stretches, then I sit down, I have my candle that I start with, I have a daily devotional book that I read from, and then I just sit quietly for about 20 to 22 minutes, and I listen to my breath. And sometimes I focus on a mantra, sometimes I just simply say Om, and sometimes I just sit in silence. When I'm done, I grab my journal that's right there ready for me. And you have to be ready, right? You want to make sure all your things are ready so you're not walking around looking for things, because that just is another way you're sabotaging your practice. So my journal is right there with a pen that works, which is key because I've had pens run out. So I usually have 1 or 2 pens. And I just write. I write my thoughts. I clear the clutter in my mind. I clear the cobwebs. I set my intention for the day. Sometimes I'll write mantras. It just depends on the day. Again, I'll get into more detail on this on a future episode. And the third thing I do is some form of movement. Now, for the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, my son and I have been going on a long walk. We live in a very hilly, mountainous place, so about 2 to 2.5 miles, and we are good for the day. And about 2, 3, 4 times a week, depends on the week, usually about 3 times a week, I will go dancing. I love to dance. This one is crucial for me. It's not part of my morning practice, but it is part of my movement practice. But every morning I do go for a walk. If the weather is really bad, then I will just do some yoga, or I'll put on some music and I'll dance in my bedroom. So whatever it is, something to get my internal heat activated. So that's my simple spiritual daily practice. I invite you to explore your own. I'd love to hear in the comments what you're thinking you're going to do. And then of course, if you do it, come back and let me know. And also what I'd love to hear you do is tag me on Instagram. Do hashtag spiritual self-care and then tag me, Elena_Lipson. I'd love to see what you're up to in your spiritual self-care practice. If you're lighting a candle, if you're pulling a tarot card, if you're just sitting in silence. And I guarantee you the people around you, especially those that live with you in your home, will begin to notice that you are showing up differently. You'll begin to notice that instead of reacting quickly or being hurried, you're actually slowing down and being in the moment. And somehow magically more time appears when you're in that space. So I really hope you enjoyed and got something out of this, because my biggest intention is to activate and inspire you to really understand that there is divine truth in spiritual self-care, and it really brings about positive changes in the most simple, but then also in the most profound ways. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Tag me on Instagram. Leave a review with your spiritual self-care practices or intentions in the comments. And of course, if you know someone, or if you run a community, or if you have group coaching, or if you have women in your life, and men, of course, I see more and more men are commenting on my posts, which is awesome. Share it with somebody that you feel really would benefit from having this spiritual self-care conversation and practice in their lives. Thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait to see you again next week when I continue to explore self-care and the feminine metrics of success. Again, as always, you can find me at elenalipson.com. And if you listen all the way through to the closing of this episode, you'll hear me invite you to elenalipson.com/gift, where I actually have a free gift for you that shares the exact 3 steps that I do as my magic morning practice. And in that video, I actually guide you with many, many examples of how to start your own magic morning practice, which is, of course, spiritual self-care. So I hope to see you over there. I'd love to hear how it goes for you, and I will see you on the next episode of Meditations and Musings. Take care, be well, and do something good for yourself today. Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new divine self-care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.